Randy Jr. I think he's deferring to you from now on, from what I understood from last.
Sounded like the other day.
That's right.
All right, so the 7th of November was the last city council meeting. We had a final plat that was approved, Black Butte Business Park, number 3, Phase 2. And you've seen those several times come before us, IL zoning up there on the bench there. And then they adopted formal findings for Clear Creek subdivision. That was just a little bit challenging one, and so our attorney suggested we go through the process of adopting those formal findings. So they did adopt that, and that was a denial, if you recall. That was the one off of Middleton and across from,
Lone Star Middle School.
yep, across from Lone Star. And then the next one was the Amity Estates County subdivision. You had recommended denial because it was so far out there on Amity. This was, pardon me, a pre-annexation. So they were going to get utilities from us, and then eventually, when they became contiguous, they would be annexed. But they withdrew that application, I assume based on the fact that there was a recommendation of denial and some other factors, I assume. And then the other one that was withdrawn was the Madison Ranch Estates subdivision. So that was the one right off of 2026, and they withdrew that one at the last second. Christy, have we had any more information as to why they withdrew? That was just at the last second and the day of the meeting. So we don't have a lot of information as to why that occurred. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the zoning text amendments were adopted, except for they took your advice and they they withdrew. We basically withdrew the chapter 34. Those were the design review requirements for industrial that were being proposed. We met with quite a few industrial developers. The mayor met with them the other day and got their feedback and directed staff to draft new language and then go back to them, show them that language, and then we'll take it before you again. So that'll be a whole new hearing. It'll have to go before you and then city council. So that was the result of that one.
Okay.
Any questions?
No.
Okay.
Now you got a density report for
I
us.
do.
All right.
Maybe I'll do it from over here, though.
That's fine.
Okay. Just for the record, Rodney Ashby, Planning and Zoning Director. Let's see if I can get it up on the screen now. Thank you. All right, so this is our third quarter density report. And when we do these density reports, when we say third quarter, it's different from our fiscal year. We're just doing the calendar year, so it's the third quarter of the calendar year. At the beginning of next year, in 2023, probably in January, late January or early February. We'll come back with the fourth quarter and then the whole annual report. And we'll do some analysis like we did last year, a lot more detail than we do on these quarterly reports. So the first one is the preliminary plats, and I want you to please take a look at the dates for the preliminary plats here. This was actually the first quarter of 2022, and we go a full year for reporting all of the plats that were submitted that year up to the end of that first quarter. So that's what you're seeing here is a full year's compilation of plats. The next quarter is shown now, and that was end of June. And then finally, the last one, the third quarter that I'm reporting on now. As you can see, quite a few dropped off from that, from last quarter, meaning that there was a quarter in there that we had quite a few preliminary plats, and those are no longer there. They were before the 1st of October of 2021. So you can see that those dropped off quite a bit, and the only new ones we had since last quarter are those 3 that are shown there circled in red. Kind of the same patterns though, to the north, to the southeast, and to the west are where we continue to see growth. So here's a little closer view of those subdivisions, and then the bottom half of that map, and then the list of projects. You can see that single-family units for that total year up to this point is 1,858. For multifamily units, it's 331 units that were approved through the platting process. So the next one is final plats. So this is, again, the first quarter, the end of the first quarter. These are showing those the year before. And then, as you can see, they're all over the place. That was the second quarter. They're all over the city. And then these are the ones for this quarter. I wasn't able to show the differences between these 2 quarters, but you can see that most of these are the next phase that just are, they're moving to the next phase on a lot of these projects. So here's a little closer view. And the bottom half. And then the final plats. And just again, as you know, and maybe for the public, I could announce that final plats are ones that you'll see get developed much more quickly than those preliminary plats. So we anticipate these to be done in the next couple of years, or started in the next couple of years, depending on what the economy does. We've seen a downturn. The building department has seen a significant downturn in building permits. And so some of these may not get developed out, just depending on what the economy does now. But as you can see, 1,612 single-family units were approved through final plats, and only 88 units on one single project, the Sugar Creek Townhomes, for multifamily units. And then last of all is the short plats. Pretty small numbers here. This is that first quarter again, the second quarter, and then this is the new ones. And I think we have, yeah, those are the change from last quarter. So in this last quarter, those 2 short plats were submitted. And that is it. We had a total of 8 single-family homes and 66 multifamily units approved through the short plats. And that's all I have. Do you have any questions for me? Yeah. The enclaved areas?
Yeah, I want to see, do you know how many have filled in since the last quarter of the last year?
Yeah, we don't show that on this map. We could definitely come back with that
Well,
information.
we always ask that, we like the unfilled areas to be filled in. So if we can see we're making progress, we could encourage more
Yeah.
people to do it. If we're not making progress, we can say, hey.
Yeah, great point. Yeah,
That's like freebies almost.
yeah. Okay, yeah, we'll get that information out.
Thank you.
That's a great question. All right.
Okay. The formal findings, reason statement process. Are you doing that?
Yeah. There's, we've been working with the attorney, and I mentioned that the formal findings for Clear Creek were needed. We have had some requests from some of the developers' attorneys to provide legal findings for projects in the past. Our process has been really simple. In the past, we provide an action letter stating the findings, what the state code says it's a reasoned statement. It doesn't say anything about findings, but the general term that planners use is the findings. So what are the facts that support that this project has met the criteria listed in state code and local code? So what we do is we provide an action letter after the decisions that you make or the decisions that city council make, and we send that to the applicant stating, here's what they decided, and here's the facts behind that. Anything you talk about, we try to incorporate into those findings. Our attorney has said that we need to tighten this up quite a bit so that we provide a written findings of approval to you to consider. So what that might mean is we will submit findings, recommended findings to you in your staff report for projects. And if you adopt all of those findings and go along with the recommendation from staff, then we're done and we can send that letter out stating, yes, you're approved and here are the findings that the commission approved.
And have them sign that.
Yes, and we'll have to have Peggy sign the conclusions of law or the findings. We'll have to have it written and signed by Peggy representing this commission. So if it occurs where you find something different than what staff recommended as findings, we're going to have to come back to you in 2 weeks or the next time we meet and say, here are the written findings. You said these things. Do you agree with this? And we'll just put that on the consent agenda, so it shouldn't take much time, but that will allow Peggy to sign that written statement of findings. And then that's when we send it out. And the critical part of all of this is that by state law, that is when the appeal period starts. So if we say, Peggy, I'm sorry, I should be more formal. Madam Chair, if we say that the appeal period starts at the decision tonight, and then we have different findings than what staff recommended, that's not true, right? It would start as soon as the findings are signed by the chair. So we just need to be clear about that in the future, and we'll do our best to to provide findings that you can adopt and not have to come back before you again, because that just adds some time to the development process, and we're trying to avoid that as much as possible.
Okay. Consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as written.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, consent agenda is approved. Okay, we have little change. Action item number 5, we're going to move to number 1 because they have some small children and don't want to be here all evening with them running around, and I don't blame them. So we're going to go ahead and do the conditional use permit for First Steps Daycare. Want to come on up and?
Hello, my name is Brianna Mahaffey. I'm with First Steps Daycare located at 5675 East Franklin Road in Nampa. I'm here in hopes of moving forward and purchasing the existing daycare that is already up and running since May of this year. This is my last step in the process. I've completed everything else required of me. I'm a mother of 2 young boys, ages 2 and 7, a wife to my husband Owen, a registered nurse, and a lactation consultant. I've worked in the neonatal intensive care unit at both St. Luke's and St. Alphonsus for over 16 years. My family currently owns American Muffler in Caldwell, and we've been proudly serving this community for over 2 years. I have worked in healthcare since I was 16 years old, and I've worked as a nurse assistant to the elderly and then transitioned into Babyland after I graduated nursing school. I spent my whole career for a community of children who were unable to speak for themselves. I currently hold multiple certifications that pertain to the education and care of infants and children. I've dedicated my whole life to advocate and protect our children, and my hopes are to continue this outside of the hospital. Thank you.
Are you making any changes to the operation?
No.
Everything's going to be the same as before? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Christy.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I'm Christy Watkins, Principal Planner for the City of Nampa. The request before you this evening is for the transfer of an existing conditional use permit for a daycare facility to be issued to the First Steps Daycare LLC in perpetuity located at 5675 East Franklin Road. So staff finds that this is a commercial tenant space located central to many employment opportunities, and all properties surrounding it are zoned GB1. This daycare use and other retail and service uses already exist on this property and on abutting properties. Public facilities and utilities are readily available to the property. Daycares are allowed, as stated in Nampa City Code 1032 with a conditional use permit in the GB zone. The daycare use provides a conveniently located service for employees of the surrounding businesses and students at CWI. And this daycare use provides a conveniently located service for employees of the surrounding businesses and students at CWI. So because it meets the 3 criteria for the CUP, staff can recommend approval based on these findings. The correspondence that was received was from the building department to meet the standard Title IV regulations. And from the engineering division, same comments as last time. They talked about existing access, right-of-way, utility services, and site improvements that already exist. And then they also outlined the trip generation estimates. The potential conditions of approval are listed in your staff report. A new commercial sign will be required to get a new sign permit. And the conditional use permit will be granted to the property and to for this address, and then to First Steps Daycare in perpetuity so that we don't actually have to go through the transfer process again in the future should she choose to sell it to someone else. And then these are your potential motions. I will stand for any questions.
Any questions for Christy?
Christy, I have a quick question.
Go ahead, Jeff.
If they sell it in perpetuity, does it have to be will it have to be sold as First Steps Daycare, First Steps LLC Daycare, or if the name changed to a different owner, would they have to get a new CUP?
So it's been requested that the conditional use permit be issued to First Steps LLC. So it would have to transfer the full name and everything.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. What do you guys want to do?
Right, open a
Oh,
public hearing.
Public hearing, we got to do public hearing. Oh, my gosh. Okay, we're going to go to public hearing. Do we have a sign-up sheet?
Thank you. Thank you.
Parker, are you grabbing that for me? Thank you. You have Daniel's job now.
If he could have done it better, we could have let him keep the job, but since,
Okay, the only person I have signed up is Brianna, so she's already told us her thing. Is there anybody present that would like to speak for, against, or undecided on this conditional use permit? Okay,
Make a motion, we close the public hearing?
second.
it's been moved and seconded to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed. Now, what do you guys want to do?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the conditional use permit for a commercial daycare, First Steps LLC daycare, address at 5675 East Franklin Road, Suite 103, for Brianna Mahaffey, representing Sharon
Sal?
Zhao, Alexander, and, Tuxman? Alexander Tuxman? Is that right? Close enough? Okay. With findings for approval and conditions listed in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. This CUP will become effective 15 calendar days from the date of this hearing unless an appeal has been filed with the Planning and Zoning Department with the appropriate fee. No action should be taken on the CUP until the appeal period has concluded. The applicant must confirm with Planning and Zoning staff there have been no appeals. All right? Thank you. Okay, I get to sign. That. All right, now we're going back to public hearing number 1, short plat approval for West Orchard Apartments. We have the applicant here.
Hi, my name is Blake Wolf. I live at 843 West Horizon Way here in Nampa. I am the applicant and the owner and developer of this little project. The intent of this short plat was to get the buildings going and then subdivide around the buildings as we are here right now. That's what has happened. The site plan and the intent all along was to subdivide it, so it was all pre-planned that way. The ordinances within the zoning allows for this kind of bass-ackwards way to do things in this particular zoning. There will be an HOA that will manage the little subdivision for the common lots, which there are 2. And there'll be a total of 4 buildings, 3 fourplexes and a duplex. All those foundations are in the ground, all the site work is done. Mainly here for questions pertaining that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, Rodney Ashby, Planning and Zoning Director. I think he's done a great job of describing the application already, so I'll kind of skip over this first slide. Here's the site layout. There's actually 2 common areas, one of those being the drainage facility back here that's also listed as a landscape area. Here's a little closer view. This is the preliminary plat drawings. Here's the final plat. Closer view of that final plat, and then the landscape plan, and then a closer view of that landscape plan here. So the comprehensive plan shows this, whoops, oh boy. Well, it shouldn't, that aerial view shouldn't be on there. I'm sorry about that. The comprehensive plan shows this is a medium-density residential zone, or designation, I should say. Let's see if I can figure out how to make this go away. There we go. The current jurisdiction is in the city, and it's zoned RML. The surrounding zoning is, to the north is BC, and that's the Next Ride Auto dealership. Owner is Epic Shine. To the south is West Orchard Avenue, and even farther south is RS6 zoning with Nampa Christian Middle School there. To the east is RML zoning, single-family homes. There's 3 of them there, you can see on the screen now. And then to the west is RML's single-family homes, and then even farther is the RS6 PUD and BC PUD, and that's for the Orchard Place apartments. So there are apartments in the area. And just quick history, 1971 is the zoning. November 2021, they had the pre-app and identified 14 units on the property. They applied for the short plat in August, and then they issued, as soon as they submitted the short plat, they submitted the building permit following that. And so that, as Mr. Wolf described, that is allowed in code so that we know he's going through the process of subdividing, and we can analyze those building permits based on the fact that it's going to be subdivided. Utilities are in the area and are available to the property. So here are the applicable regulations. These are in your staff report. I'd be happy to go over them, but there's a lot of details here that I'm sure you've already read. Here's the ones for just the subdivision policy, and then short plats, specifically what process we have to go through for short plats. Correspondence, the building department requested that that they comply with Title IV and that they go through a certificate of occupancy at the end of the construction of their buildings. So that's your typical standards. Engineering department. So the one thing is number 2 there that I would point out is erosion control permit is required prior to the start of any earth disturbing activities. We're kind of done with that. We're going back in after the fact because we've already got the building permit started. So preliminary plat comments, you see those there. Final plat, and the final thing there is that they just comply with those preliminary plat and final plat comments on those sheets. And then fire district said that they're located approximately 1.4 miles from the fire station number 1, and that would take about 7 minutes to get to. They also requested an increased personnel demand of 0.042 firefighter positions for the number of residents that would be occupying those parcels. Nampa Forester and the planning and zoning, our planning and zoning team who reviews this, looked at their landscape plan and found that they have the white ash tree, and they will need to submit a different tree from the white ash, because that's not one of those that is allowed by the city of Nampa. And so that's just a condition of approval that we recommended. Nampa Police Department, they said that they need 0.02 additional support staff and 0.06 additional officers. They recommended that we budget for $5,530 in the future for the officers and $1,377 for the support staff.
Ronnie, didn't you have that backwards? Thought you said it was 2 officers and 6.
.06
I-
officers and
You
.02.
said it right. My fault.
Well, that's okay.
Getting old.
Okay, so staff analysis of the plat. Here's the plat. It's 1.19 acres. RML lot count is 6. Total common lots is 2. Total building lots is 4. So they are required to have a minimum of 6,000 square feet for the duplex. They have proposed 7,000 square feet, so that fits. They are required to have a minimum of 8,700 square feet for the fourplexes, and they have the smallest is 10,812 square feet, so they comply with that. They are not to exceed 3,500 square feet of land per unit. So for the duplex, that would be 7,000 square foot, and they have proposed 7,000, so that fits. The fourplex can't be over 14,000 square feet, and they've proposed 11,708 square feet is the max, the largest parcel there. For the RML building lot widths, the requirement is a minimum of 30 feet. They have a minimum of 71.75. For qualified open space, they are exempt. So short plats are exempt because they're just a smaller type subdivision, and sometimes that's really difficult to get that qualified open space in. But they have submitted 0.13 acres as qualified open space, and that's 11%, just for your information. The number of spaces, parking spaces, will be handled at the building permit stage, but this is that requirement. The density, minimum density is 12.45. The maximum density is 29.82. They have proposed close to the bottom end of that density, which is 15.51. They're dedicating with the plat, they've indicated 12.5 feet of right-of-way be dedicated to the city. I've talked a little bit about the landscaping already, so I don't think I need to go through that again. The landscaping buffer shows 25.3 feet of landscape buffer, and the minimum is 25 that we need, so they comply there. They have some existing fencing, but where there is not fencing, they are proposing to put in the fencing, and that is according to code. The open space, I've already talked about. Fiscal impact, this development is projected to generate $7,622 in general fund property taxes annually when averaged over the first 10 years. So just for your information. Here are the recommended conditions. They are in your staff report. That includes the change of the white ash tree to something else on the plat. They'll need to show that. This will go on to City Council for approval on the consent agenda. So short plats, since they're kind of a combined preliminary and final, they go to a public hearing here and then on the consent agenda at City Council. And here's the recommended findings for approval. Since it's not associated with an annexation or zoning, it's already annexed, it's already zoned. This is the only finding that has to be in place. And as you've seen, we've gone through all those code requirements, and they comply with each one of them. So staff has no concerns about this project being compliant with city code. And those are your potential motions to the right there. I stand for questions.
Any questions? Okay, we'll go to public hearing. I have the sign-up sheet. We only have Blake on here. Is there anybody else present that would like to speak for, against, or undecided on this proposal?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed.
Madam Chair, I think that's a great project, and we're already started, so
Kind of hard to back up, isn't it?
formality, I guess. So I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the subdivision short plat approval for West Orchard Apartments in an RML zoning district at 428 West Orchard Avenue for Blake Wolf with all recommended conditions and findings by staff.
Second.
Okay, so moved and seconded to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
All right, the next one is annexation zoning to IL zoning district for 16763 Madison Road. Yep, come on up here, give us your name and address, and tell us what you want to do.
My name is Victor Polico, property over 16763 Madison Road. And what I was requesting is hook up the city sewer to, and rezoning to existing buildings that's already on the property. That's pretty much it.
Okay, we'll hear from staff, and we'll have, if we have any questions, we'll call you up afterwards.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Christie?
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Christy Watkins, Principal Planner for the City of Nampa. The request before you this evening is to recommend approval for annexation and zoning to IL, Light Industrial, at 16763 Madison Road to connect an existing shop to city services. The surrounding zones are Canyon County Ag and IL. Although the property to the north is still in Canyon County, it does have a industrial use on it. And the comp plan in that area is for industrial. So staff feels that they can recommend approval of this request based on the following reasons. Meeting the criteria for annexation and zoning. The property is contiguous with city limits on the east and south sides where it adjoins the IL zoned properties that are already within the city limits. The proposed IL zoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan future land use map designated as industrial. Therefore, this zoning would not create a spot zone. Land uses in the area consist of ag uses and industrial uses, both in the city and in the county. This area of the city is developing currently with multiple industrial uses around it. There is currently a commercial and industrial use in place in the existing house and shop. The new shop that has been built in the county is currently under Canyon County jurisdiction and will house an additional commercial or industrial tenant. Any site improvements or change of use action taken after the annexation into the city, the applicant or owner shall comply with all city codes, policies, and standards in place at the time of building permit submittals. City services and utilities are available to the property. Nampa recently annexed 300-plus acres of potentially industrial zoned properties to the west of Madison. And there are industrial shell buildings currently being constructed on the south, to the south on both sides of Madison. The codes were written, city codes were written to protect the public interest by providing guidance for development. Therefore, this project is presumed to be in the public interest because it proposes that any site improvements or changes to its use in the future shall apply with city codes for the IL zone and any site improvements that would be required by the departments in the city. Upon annexation of this property, they will be required to dedicate right-of-way along Madison Road and make appropriate site improvements with the next building permit application. So the correspondence we received are from the building department to follow the Title IV building regulations should they choose to expand their use. And through the engineering division, which outlines the requirements for the right-of-way dedication, utilities, and conditions of approval, and any future frontage improvements should they choose to expand their operations. Excuse me. The conditions of approval are listed in your staff report. Want to bring your attention to number 5 and number 6. Again, upon any site improvement or change of use action taken after the annexation into the city, the applicant or owner shall put standards in place or to put improvements in place at the time of building permit to include but not limited to a 15-foot landscape buffer on Madison, paved parking, paved ADA parking, installation of sidewalk, new structures, any new structures to the property will have to go through design review. And number 6, to connect the new shop to city services, the building department will require a plumbing permit submittal to include a plumbing plan showing fixtures inside the building, and total water fixture units to ensure proper building supply size, and total drainage fixture units to ensure the building sewer size. And these are your potential motions. I will stand for any questions.
Questions, Christie? Okay, we'll go to public hearing. I have a sign-up sheet with nobody signed up. Is there anybody present that would like to speak for, against, or undecided on this?
Make a motion, we close the public hearing?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed.
Madam Chair, I think that it's pretty straightforward and agree with the findings of staff, so I would go ahead and move to recommend approval of the annexation and zoning to IL zoning district at 16763 Madison Road for Victor Polyakov, with all findings and conclusions listed in the staff report and the recommended findings of staff.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That's been done. All right, thank you, Victor. Thank you. Okay, number 3, conditional use permit to allow multiple family residential apartments at Gateway Flats.
Good evening. My name is Josh Leonard. I'm with the law firm of Clark Wardle, here to represent the applicant in this application. My address is 210 Front Street in Boise, Suite 310. With me here are Weston Arnell and Dave Beater, as well as Sonia, and I apologize, I'm going to... Sonia Delyden, who's here from Kittleson, who will be here to answer any questions that you can have as well. If we can click to the first slide on that. And go ahead to the next one. Do you have a... Earlier this year, we obtained several approvals tied to redevelopment of this property. This is the Nampa Gateway project. And we're grateful for those approvals. Among those approvals, we included a development agreement modification that was approved by the City Council in March. And then a conditional use permit that allowed us to repurpose the Macy's building into a light industrial for the House of Design. And then another conditional use permit that, as you can see in the history part of the staff report, wasn't as quick, but did get approved, and that was for a townhouse element of multifamily along the eastern edge of this property. Importantly, I want to highlight the development agreement modifications that happened and that the city approved. They specifically included a multifamily element. There were 2 phases to that. The first phase is the one that was approved with that earlier CUP for townhomes. This one is now here for a 4-story, 159-unit, a little bit higher density, but not high density residential residential units. Pursuant to that approved redevelopment plan for the project, we're now here talking about Area 5, which is between the House of Design, the theater, which is in 4 there, and the townhouse-style units which run along the eastern side of the project. And as I mentioned, this application implements those planned and contemplated apartments. As I mentioned also, the units will be configured as 2 4-story buildings around amenities, including a swimming pool and a clubhouse. And those amenities are in addition to the required open space. And I'd note, as indicated in the staff report, we exceed that minimum of 5% for recreational space. We're at 8.15, I think, percent. Let's see, back one. Additionally, as part of our conditional use request, we're requesting a waiver or modification of the height requirement. Importantly, this isn't a variance request. This is a little bit different. This is included with our conditional use permit request. Over 65 feet would require city council approval. We're not going quite that high. As I mentioned, we're at 4 stories, and that's approximately 52 feet in height. I would note that we're buffered from the adjacent residential by over 300 feet. I believe the staff report says 380 feet, and that we taper down as we get closer to the nearby single-family residential because of the townhomes that would be in between there. This slide just shows the mix of sizes and square footage and configurations of the units. Sonia, if you want to talk a little bit about traffic.
Hello, I'm Sonia Delyden with Kittleson and Associates, and we prepared a transportation assessment for the previous projects that came through earlier this year, as well as this one. And so on the screen right now, you can see the areas within the overall Napa Gateway Center that have changed this year. So when the Napa Gateway Center was initially approved, that was done with a detailed transportation study that assumed various land uses and then conditioned transportation system mitigations for those land uses. And so roadways such as Stam and Flamingo and Garrity, there were transportation improvements made to those roads to accommodate the land uses that were assumed at that initial approval. So now you can see, so in the darker blue, that is the previous approved 77 townhomes, and those were taking away a previously approved 80,000 square foot office development from the initial Napa Gateway. In the purple, you can see here the reuse of the 100,000 square foot Macy's retail building reused into the House of Design. In the cyan, kind of bright blue color there, you can see an existing 40,000 square feet of retail building that will be replaced with green space. And then in the red, you can see the proposed 189 apartment units. And so what we did is take a look at those previously, there's a lot of numbers on this slide, I apologize, but we took a look at those previously approved uses that were either approved and or built, and calculated what type of transportation impact do they have. And that's in those above rows, so you can see how many trips those previously approved items would generate. And then we calculated the same trip generation for the proposed uses that are going to be replacing those. And so you can see when you compare those two, overall on a daily basis, the proposed uses that are being proposed now actually will generate almost 4,000 fewer daily trips than what was previously approved, 65 fewer AM peak hour trips, and then 256 fewer PM peak hour trips. So compared to what was initially approved with the overall Napa Gateway Center and the transportation mitigations that went in for that, what's being proposed at this time will have less transportation impact than that's already been mitigated.
Madam Chair, I have a quick question.
Go Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, so as far as transportation, and this is kind of a two-part, if you were looking in a crystal ball, probably, but there's been some rumblings that Edwards Theater is pulling out of that area. I don't know if that's 100% true, but the question is, if that's the case, would that change, or do you know if that would change any of this transportation, the numbers here? Or would they just relatively stay the same?
So we didn't account, or we assumed the theater was a remaining use when we did our calculations. If the theater leaves, which I am not the person to talk to about that, but if it does leave, obviously that would further decrease the amount of trips coming to the site. I will caveat that, though, that would change if something replaces the theater. But if the theater leaves, that would further reduce the number of trips coming to the site versus what was previously approved.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, you're totally fine. No worries. Moving to the CUP approval criteria, they're listed in your staff report as well as, and I'll just hit on them really briefly. As for the location, size, design, and operating characteristics, our project will have no adverse impacts on the neighborhood. It redevelops an existing surface parking lot and in conjunction with the demolition of existing vacant retail space, which itself will be repurposed for amenities for the residents. As Sonia noted, the traffic will remain consistent with prior approved uses of the property. And as we mentioned earlier this year in prior approved applications, we've scaled these new residential units to the point where we don't see those new net vehicle trips and no net increase. As I mentioned earlier, this is over 300 feet from the closest single-family residential use. It's also screened by a 30-foot landscaping buffer, an 8-foot tall masonry fence, and then significantly, as I mentioned, the townhouse multifamily use to the east. This mixture of uses in this area is important to minimize vehicle trips and to meet the needs of residents in this area. It provides a diversity of housing types. It puts a slightly higher residential use immediately to the west of the townhome use, and again, it's higher density, but not yet high density. It also is nearby places to work. As we mentioned in previous applications on this, the House of Design offers high wage opportunity, potentially within a walking commute of these units. And then the typical slide that you see from people coming in to propose multifamily, that the growth, we need housing, and we need housing in this area. There's a historic low level of residential rental vacancy, in particular in Canyon County. Lastly, we agree with the proposed or staff's recommended conditions of approval, and we would stand for questions.
Yes, the clubhouse. What are some of the amenities that are going to be in the clubhouse, and will they be there now, or will they be built later on, or?
Hi, Weston Arnell with Gardner Company. Address is 800 West Main Street, Boise. The amenity space clubhouse will have a clubhouse space for gathering, a fitness area, pool area, and a kitchen area for the residents within the 160 units between the two buildings.
So-
And it will be built in conjunction with the apartment buildings.
So basically, they're going to get a pool and a gym?
A pool, gym, clubhouse.
You keep saying clubhouse, that's what I'm asking.
Well, clubhouse will be where the gym is located and also where the amenities, TV area, game room,
Okay, game room,
Leasing,
that would-
office, kitchen area, locker room, bathrooms.
Can you enlarge that a little bit more on the screen? Whoever's doing that?
Need me to read it to you?
Yeah, if somebody could read it to me.
Game room, club room.
I think, so if you see it on the bottom side is the fitness area, the top,
There we go.
top parts, there's a fireplace, club room, kind of a kitchen area. If you see the ZR, that means a Zoom room, so the residents of the area could come down and Zoom, kind of live, work, play, work if they don't want to, say they have kids and they want to go have a meeting, a Zoom meeting, they can go into those Zoom rooms. There's a bathroom, men and women's bathroom. That's where the leasing office will be located, and the mail room as well for the
Okay,
residents.
thank you.
And there will be a dog park within that area too.
Oh, now we're talking.
Yeah,
All right.
right. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Not at this time.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. The action request is approval or denial for a conditional use permit. The applicant covered a large portion of this, so I'll try and make this as brief as I can. This property was annexed and zoned in 2005 with the development agreement. In February this year, this body approved the conditional use permit for multifamily, which were the townhouses to the east. City Council denied that request, and it was they came in with reconsideration, and that was eventually approved for the multifamily to the east. The staff finds that the conclusions of law can be met for a conditional use permit with the recommended conditions. I'll get into the recommended findings here in a minute. The height issue with the multifamily in a BC zone that's not within 300 feet of Garrity Boulevard, which this is not, they would be limited to a height of 30 feet maximum, which is what they are asking for a waiver to. And 1025-4A is where it describes your ability to waive certain criteria. So it says a conditional use permit may be granted only if the proposal conforms to all the following conditional use permit criteria, provisions of the zoning ordinance, unless lawfully waived or modified by the commission. So you have that ability. The multifamily requirement is 5%, and they meet that requirement. The correspondence, they'll be required to meet all the building code requirements in Title IV. There was a comment from ITD that they wanted a full traffic impact study, but that was later clarified that the traffic impact study, the update to that would suffice, so they don't need anything additional. The engineering comments, that's in the staff report. There's existing system has capacity for the additional residents. The area is, this is a mixed use area. The significant amount of commercial existing to the north and west, as well as county residential further to the east. And there is high density residential to the south. The development agreement that was modified earlier this year, some things to highlight from that. One being that the maximum, there's a maximum of 750,000 square feet of building area that would be allowed in the Gateway Center development. And I calculated that and included that in your staff report as one of the attachments. This was an estimate, but it's pretty close that the proposed buildings, including these apartments, would be at 577,000 square feet. So they're still within the amount of building area allowed. The next one, development of the property within the Nampa Gateway Center may include up to 700 total attached residential units. This proposal would bring the amount up to 236. And then the last part to highlight, the parking would be addressed phase by phase, which we will account for at the time of building permit. The recreation space is 8.12%. 6.3% of that is outdoor, and then 1.75 is indoor. And we looked at those amenities already. The proposed structures here are approximately 380 feet, as was mentioned by the applicant, from the single-family residence to the east, with the multifamily townhouse-style units in between that.
Hey, Parker, I got a quick question on that building height waiver.
Yes.
So reading that, it says if this requirement is not waived for this particular project, then any future multifamily development is still restricted to that 30-foot. If this is waived, if this requirement is waived for this project, does any future projects do they fall under that waiver automatically, or do they have to come before the commission each time to get the waiver, even though this one may be granted?
Madam Chair and Commissioners, this conditional use permit is for this development. One of the conditions of this that staff is recommending is that the development be in substantial conformance with the concept plan. So this CUP would be for these two buildings, and they need to substantially comply with this. So any further development would have to come in with additional plans, proposals, and waiver requirements.
Okay. But we may have set the precedent with this particular project if it is waived for any future projects.
Madam Chair and Commissioner, we would, again, with future proposals, look at it on a case-by-case basis. If we would look at all the facts, the distance to the other properties, and you would make a decision based on those facts, not necessarily based on precedent.
Okay, good answer, Parker. Thank you.
One of the conditions as well is that the structures not exceed 65 in height. Again, that's the threshold that would send the CUP to City Council, so we kind of put a cap on that, since that body would not be approving this conditional use permit. The recommended findings were adjusted based on attorney input. Just adding more facts to it to support it. Nothing really changes as far as the staff recommendation. And if you are moving to approve it, then we can adopt those and move forward. There's a potential motion for you, and I will stand for any questions.
Any questions for Parker? Okay, we'll go to public hearing. I have a sign-up sheet, and there's nobody signed up. Is there anybody present that would like to speak for, against, or undecided on this proposal? Come on up, sir, and give us your name and address for the record.
Dan Lucas, 5718 Howard Lane. People in the area live there because we have large lots and like a little bit of space. We are neighbors, we know each other, and when we walk our dogs and our kids, we are always waving and saying hello. How many more cars will be added to the intersections of Stam, Happy Valley, and Robinsons? And if you do the simple math and multiply times 2 cars for each apartment, you're well over 300. Your apartments already added to the area have a detrimental effect on the traffic. Robinson Road and Happy Valley and those intersections on Robinson Roads are very dangerous, particularly around Stam, at least there is some improvement on Airport Road that's going to be in the mix. It's for these reasons that I am against the apartments. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak for, against, or undecided?
Make a motion, we close the public hearing?
Second.
But he can rebut when we close public.
Madam
testimony.
Chair, I
No.
would recommend you keep the
Okay.
public hearing open until they've rebutted.
Okay. All right, come on back up, and then we'll close public hearing.
I'll be really brief. Just on the traffic counts, we're, based on what's approved at that location currently, we're lower in terms of traffic count than what we could do under the current development agreement. And stand for questions if there are any others.
Understand, but there will be an impact to traffic there. You can't
Fair point.
say it won't, because it's been empty for a long time. Well, not empty, not completely empty, but partially empty for quite a while, so. Yeah. Okay.
Any other-
That wasn't a question, I guess. It was a comment.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Nope.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now,
Make a motion again to close the public hearing?
Second.
okay, it's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed.
Well, this has been before us, I don't know how many times in the past, but honestly, I think it gets better as it comes back, because maybe the developer is understanding the feelings of the local people who live around there. Maybe it's economic, I don't know, but they just seem to be better to me than they have been a couple of years back. And I've always thought this is a good location for density, because the interstate is right there. Most people are gonna go east to Boise. Not that they can't shop here, but they're probably gonna work in Boise, and they'll be right there by the interstate. So I think it's a good fit. I like it.
Well, I like the density there as well, and I think it's, because you have the grocery store right there and you have a lot of amenities right there, that does mitigate the number of trips that's going to happen, because people don't have to get in the car and drive because there's stuff that's already there, so,
They won't drive off the property, they'll be still on the same property.
true. And so I do like the proposal as well.
There's a lot of employment there, too. I mean, you got the hospital and across the freeway at Autovol and Amazon, and people that work there need a place to live, and a lot of those people can't afford to live in new
CWI.
$500,000 houses. So, good mix of housing types and good design, and I like it. I'm okay with waiving the height restriction. I think the site is, that restriction's more for smaller sites right on the major arterial, and this is a big enough site that I think it's not gonna stand out with the scale of the other buildings, so I'm okay with that.
You don't like it?
Anybody else?
I think we're in accord, so Madam Chair, I'll move to approve the conditional use permit to allow multiple family residential apartments, Nampa Gateway Flats in a BC zoning district at 1232 North Galleria Drive, waive the height restriction requirement, and adopt the potential findings for approval as listed in the presentation for Clark Wardle LLP, Jeffrey and Wardle representing multiple owners.
With all that other stuff they added.
Where's the, with all conditions of staff and stuff? Do I just, with all conditions of staff and the findings of staff?
I'll second.
Throw me off when I can't just read it off the screen. But with all conditions and findings of staff.
Still second.
Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the CUP. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this CUP will become effective 15 calendar days from the date of this hearing unless an appeal has been filed with the Planning and Zoning Department with the appropriate fee. No action should be taken on the CUP until the appeal period has concluded. The applicant must confirm with planning and zoning staff there have been no appeals. Thank you. Okay, and our final one tonight, a CUP for an unlisted land use for Dwayne Tomic. Come on up. Give us your name and address and tell us what you want to do.
Hello, Dwayne Tomic, 915 9th Avenue South, Nampa. I have a house on my property. It's in the back at the alley, old house, 53. We're in the process of building a house in the front to match up with the rest of the homes. And I was wanting to live in the home that I'm in now while the house is being built. I did have a nice letter that came with the application, but I don't have a copy of it, so.
Well, that's okay. We'll hear from staff, and
All right.
we might have questions for you.
Sir, I had a question for you.
Yes.
You are aware of the limitations on how long you can live in the building and how long before you can tear it down?
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Parker?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. The action requested approval or denial of a conditional use permit. This is an unlisted land use for a temporary home. We had this not too long ago, so it's should be somewhat fresh in your mind. This is a single-family area surrounded by single-family homes. Staff finds that the conclusions can be met with the recommended conditions. The temporary residence uses pre-move-on houses are allowed, wherein single-family homes are allowed. The pre-move-on houses would be allowed for a maximum of 365 days. These are added in the conditions of approval. There's a site view, aerial view there that you can see the house is towards the back of the lot along the alley, and a street view. This is the building permit that's been submitted. You can see the new house is towards the front of the lot there. That will line up more with the adjacent houses. They need to comply with Title IV building regulations. We've received the building permit already, and that's under review, pending this approval, obviously. That's the existing home is at the rear of the lot, which doesn't necessarily fit the area. So a new house would be, constructed near the front would be better aesthetically with the surrounding area. The conditional use permit would allow them to build the house while they still live there. The conditions of approval, temporary use for a move-on house would be issued for 365 days. They can extend that with a request for extension. Upon completion, we would issue an occupancy permit, and they would have 60 days from that occupancy permit to vacate the existing house. Similar conditions to the last one. The recommended findings are in the staff report, and there's a potential motion for you, and I will stand for any questions.
Hey, Parker, do they have to vacate the house? Can that house be used as a rental, a secondary property?
Madam Chair and Commissioner, they would only be allowed to have one house on the property.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, it says be vacated and removed from property.
So Parker, does that mean the house has to be demolished within the 60 days? That's what I'm reading in number 4, condition of approval, be removed.
Yes, that would be the way to bring it into conformity.
Seems, okay.
They don't have to demolish it, they can move it, right?
Well, Yeah, I guess they could, right in that alley right behind them.
Pick it up over the new house.
All right, we'll go to public hearing. I have nobody signed up. Is there anybody present that would like to speak for, against, or undecided on this proposal? Okay. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant?
I do.
Okay, go
Actually,
ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I'm just looking at that 60 days, and I wanted to ask the applicant, do you think is feasible to demolish or move that house in 60 days after you move into your new one?
The house is not very big, and the builder said that it wouldn't take that long to remove it.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all I needed. Thank you.
Now make the motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed. I think this is easy.
Yep, Madam Chair, this is straightforward. I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the CUP for an unlisted land use to permit a temporary home be occupied until the construction of a new home on the property at 915 9th Avenue South, and adopt the potential findings and conditions for approval as listed in the staff report. For Dwayne Tomic.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the CUP. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. This CUP will become effective 15 calendar days from the date of this hearing unless an appeal has been filed with the Planning and Zoning Department with the appropriate fee. No action should be taken on the CUP until the appeal period has concluded. The applicant must confirm with Planning and Zoning staff there have been no appeals. All right.
Enjoy your new home.
And that's the last one, so